So in this vodcast, we're going to talk about calculating from moles to mass. Now, in 1 mole, I have 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. That can mean a mole of carbons, a mole of ducks, like my little duck. It always means 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Now, in the last video, we talked about how to write that out with numerators and denominators. Here it is again. So you could either write the molar mass over 1 mole, or you could write 1 mole over the molar mass. This is going to be really useful when you get to more complicated equations. So you're going to really thank yourself for practicing writing them out in this way. So let's try that out. I'll show you an example. The molar mass of carbon, if we look at the periodic table, is 12.011 grams over 1 mole. So that means that 1 mole has 12.011 grams. We could also write it as 1 mole is equal to 12.011 grams. Okay, so let's try an example problem where we write these out like this. So if I have 10 moles of carbon, how much mass do I have? So the first thing I'm going to write is what I know in the problem, and that's 10 moles of carbon. Now I know that that carbon has 12.011 grams for 1 mole. Now let's pay close attention to how I'm writing this. I chose this version where 12.011 grams is on top because, and I'll show you why, you want these to be opposite of each other. If they're diagonal from each other, they're opposite. One way I try to help myself remember it is by putting a little 1 down here. Now, of course, you know that 10 divided by 1 is 10. So the 1 doesn't do anything here other than just to remind me that this 10 is on the top. It's on the numerator. So therefore, I'm going to want my 1 mole in the denominator. Okay, so since we have 1 here and 1 here, let's ignore what's on the bottom then. And that tells us that we're going to take 10 moles of carbon times 12.011. So here we go. We're going to write those out. 10 mole carbon times 12.011 grams equals 120.1 grams because you're solving for mass. Now, an easy way to figure out what unit you're going to use is to look at it this way. Anywhere that you see, when you're looking at 2 of these, anywhere that you see the same unit, cross it out. So you would cross out mole here, you cross out mole here because those are the same. Here's a 1 here and here's a 1 here, so you would cross out the 1 there, you'd cross out the 1 there. It'd be a good idea to be doing this on paper while I'm explaining this. And then you're left with 10 times 12.011 grams. Since grams is the only unit that's left in this equation, you crossed out the rest of them. You know that grams is your unit for that. 120.1 grams. Make sure you label your unit so you remember what you were talking about. Okay, let's try a different problem that's kind of the opposite. Last time we found how much mass it has. Now, if I have 10 grams of carbon, how many moles do I have? So again, just like last time, I'm going to write 10 grams because that's what I remember. I'm going to grab a different color. Red, 10 grams of carbon times, now this time I'm going to put the mole on top, 1 mole. Again, I'm going to put my little 1 down here so I remember. So 1 mole over 12.011 grams. Again, that's because I want my grams up here to be opposite of my grams down here. Now here we go. In this video, I actually made this mistake and I can't go back and change it. Instead of crossing off the 1, I crossed off the mole. This mole should stay here. you should only be crossing off the one here, the one here. If I had labeled my units, which it's important to do, then I would know that I can cross off grams here, grams here. Now I know to divide 10 grams by 12.011 grams. And that is equal to 0.83 moles. And again, I knew that mole was my unit, not just because the question is asking about moles, but because if I did this correctly earlier, I wouldn't have crossed out moles. Mole would have been the only unit left in the equation. All right, and that's our answer. So give that a shot on your worksheet. Feel free to ask any questions as you need. Best of luck.